Can someone please also react whether you can see the shared screen, just to double check that you see the slides? Wonderful, thank you. I think let's just wait for 1 more minute for a few people to settle in, join the webinar or workshop, and then we'll get started just in a second. Okay, everyone, let's get started. I suspect that more people will be joining in a second, but that's totally fine. Be respectful of your time, I just would love to get started, but not without wishing you a very happy new year. I know it's not January 1st anymore, but I think it's still early enough to wish you good luck for 2025. And I assume that many of you, if not even all of you, are actually considering applying to a school. So best of luck, and also congratulations for embarking on this journey. I hope this year holds only joy for all of us. On today's agenda, as you probably know, we're going to speak very briefly about why purpose statements are important. What are the key elements of an impactful statement of purpose? This will be fed by real life examples that I have drafted or seen, and then hopefully we will have time for a brief Q&A session. But of course, before getting started, I just very briefly wanted to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me yet. I'm Jennifer Pfister from Germany. I'm now based in Boston after attending Harvard. And I chose those two pictures because in a way they really depict my wildest dreams. My background really didn't predict that one day I would graduate as a first-generation student from Harvard. This picture on the left was taken last year. Feels weird to call 2024 last year because it feels like yesterday. But yeah, that's when I got my diploma. And on the right picture, you can see me presenting my research for my graduate thesis at the Kennedy School, which then also allowed me to stay at Harvard. I now, post-graduation, work as a researcher and as an adaptive leadership coach because my research focused on the role of artificial intelligence in leadership development, one of the first studies to be ever done on this topic. But again, like the journey to get there was really not straightforward. Being a first-generation student from a low-income background really meant that I had to nail the applications game and the storytelling game very well in order to receive merit and need-based scholarships. So I've been doing this thank you for the congratulations. I've been doing this now for many, many years, but then not just in my own experience, but also in my previous job before going to grad school. I worked as the head of recruitment for Germany's largest woman leadership network. Basically, I was a matchmaker for like senior leaders in companies, big companies like BMW, Deloitte, Accenture, etc. And I really realized that I started to see patterns in motivation letters and purpose statements where I was like, okay, this works, this doesn't work. And then because I'm really a people's person and I was able to live my dreams, I also it's straightforward. It's really obvious for me that I love to support people's dreams. And that's how I ended up also starting my own coaching practice, both helping people with applications, but also with leadership development. But enough about me. Let's begin and just deep dive into today's topic. Let's start with this. Why is a statement of purpose actually super crucial and very important? I feel like in America, more than in Germany or in Europe, I mean, again, really depends on the school, program, and context. But I feel like in America, a good story, a cohesive narrative is everything and really, really matters. I have met people who were valedictorians, top 1% of their class, best of the best, and they still didn't get into their dream program. And when they showed me their application materials, I wasn't even surprised because it really didn't have a purpose that was larger than themselves. Basically, I think that should be straightforward, but I'm going to state it anyways. A purpose is something that is larger than yourself. It connects to a larger community, to broader society, and it's basically a guiding North Star that guides your actions and decisions, also study choice. But again, in a nutshell, your purpose statement is really your chance to shine. Introduce yourself authentically, build a connection with the admissions committee that will be reading your papers, and then also, really important, demonstrate how investing in you will actually benefit the grad school that will host you, that you will become a member and alumni eventually with, and also larger society. But in a nutshell, what does authentic introduction even mean? Very basic, shouldn't be a surprise, but I'm just going to repeat it anyways. An authentic introduction includes who you are, what you care about, what shaped you, and how that is relevant to what you do. And here I have a little star because one of the biggest mistakes I see over and over, your purpose statement is not your resume. Basically, always remember your CV or your resume has to list all your achievements and everything you have done. No need to repeat that in the purpose statement because I feel like that's a waste of words. You could use those words rather to for the narrative, like why you do what you do, instead of just listing it. And then you also can mention what you're planning to do at the grad school you're applying to, what you're planning to do eventually, like your vision, what you want to do with the education, skills, experiences, network gained, and how you aim to contribute. But we're going to dive deeper into all of that in a second. But something that is really important for me to say now, this is a step that you really can't skip. Um, Again, like one of the biggest mistakes I've seen myself do is just jumping into writing. And I mean, if mind mapping or writing works for you, sure. But I think in order to really go deep in your statement of purpose, you need to do this kind of soul searching where you ask yourself, what are the sources of your calling? What values are precious to you? What experiences have made them significant? And what is your call to leadership? And I guess this is me coming in a little bit as a leadership development coach because I want all of you to think of yourselves as leaders, because to get that education, to yeah, belong to the, like few percentages in the world who get to go to grad school, really makes you also like a leader. And I believe everyone can be a leader. So my question to you really is like, what is your call to leadership? Whom and how do you want them? What role model do you want to be? What communities do you want to impact, etc.? But okay, let's jump into the key elements. I prepared 5, and I also would love to emphasize that this list that I'm going to show you is by no means comprehensive. There's, of course, so much more that goes into a good purpose statement, but when I mentioned to you, I started to notice patterns. These are the 5 top ones that I want to share with you today in the limited time we have. And please, as always, with any workshop, look at what resonates with you and what doesn't, and also look what's relevant to your application and what isn't. So always take it with a grain of salt. Number 1, be explicit about your values and aspirations. Um, every now and then when I work with people, I do notice that they are really not clear. They're not able to identify nor articulate what their actual values are. And that really like resonates with me because it was also a journey for me to be able to really name them. But what I think can really help you is this list of values, which I borrowed from Brené Brown's Dare to Lead website. Basically, there are certain values that are always a little bit cliche and a little bit overused, but there's a whole universe of values. And I really encourage you to dig a little deeper and maybe, if you can, choose one that is maybe a little bit more niche, a little bit more extraordinary, but definitely authentic to you. And here's an example from my own purpose statement that I used for the Harvard Kennedy School. As you can see in the first sentence, I literally start with the values compassion and mindfulness, and not just stating that they matter to me, but also explaining why I think they are super crucial. You see that in the second sentence where I wrote, I believe that in a more compassionate and mindful world, humanity would not be complicit in the destruction of the planet, etc. But yeah, these are two values that I chose to highlight. And then when it comes to being very specific about your aspirations, again, the more concrete you can be, the better. And this is, again, a sentence I used in the same purpose statement where I wrote, believing that a fairer world is possible, I plan to create positive change by influencing policymaking, program design, and then mobilizing people through a social enterprise that I was building. Of course, you need to then elaborate and be more concrete and explain what you actually mean by that. But the more concrete or the clearer the vision that you can paint, the better that will be for the admissions committee to understand what you're about and what you want to do. Next, and this goes back to the value discussions, but this time I'm going to show you actually how to do it. It's about really showing and explaining what you care about and why you care about that. And for that, storytelling is the most powerful tool we have. Why? Because stories enable us to not just talk about values, but actually walk the talk, really show your lived experiences that demonstrate your values in action. At Harvard, one of my favorite classes that I took is called Public Narrative. It's a class offered by a civil rights leader called Marshall Gans. And he basically teaches this concept called public narrative story of self. What does that mean? Basically, the idea is that you talk about choice points in your life that have shaped the journey or the plot of your life. This could be challenges you faced, or challenges that your community has faced or a loved one has faced that really impacted you. Then the choices you made or you saw being made, and then the outcomes and lessons learned that came from that. But basically, this kind of approach helps you to answer the question, when did you start to care and why? And then, of course, we need story moments, personal stories that enable others, in this case, the admissions committee, to get you, or to get you more, we should say. Here's again, just like a quick visual representation. I'm a very visual person. So for those of you who are also visual, I thought maybe that could help. Challenge, choice, and change. Again, might not work in every single purpose statement, but I've seen the structure to be really useful. And again, I have real life examples for you that I'm going to share now. An example, for example, for public policy, I wrote something along those lines, a little bit different, but basically this idea: growing up, I watched my father come home exhausted from his physically demanding job, only to face the constant anxiety of unstable work and inadequate health benefits. This experience instilled in me a deep sense of justice and a commitment to advocating for labor rights and better working conditions for the working class. It's not just a policy issue to me, it's about real people like my dad who deserve respect and security. What's powerful in this example is that it connects it to a loved one. If this person wants to study public policy, and again, like I'm a public policy person, I think the most powerful thing you can do, and I mean, this also applies for law, business, any, like I would say, like this is like now very social sciencey, but also like we will connect it to other degrees in a second. But it's really personal, right? It shows that you care because a loved one was affected, and this is how you got into the topic. So I think this is really, really important. Next example for someone who applies for a finance degree. I witnessed my home country, Italy, suffer under the effects of climate change, from shrinking coastlines to vanishing green spaces. The alarming prediction of a 35% increase in agricultural droughts by 2050 is a call to action I cannot ignore. My commitment to spearheading sustainable and green finance initiatives is deeply personal, aimed at preserving the beauty and biodiversity of my homeland for future generations. What I find powerful here is that it demonstrates that the person understands the urgency. I mean, here using a statistic um, and just really showing how urgent the climate crisis is and how that person has seen like the effects rolling out in their own home country. It's really good and powerful. And I also love the reference to for future generations. I think that's also, again, like future generations is actually like a very nice purpose, right? Because that's much bigger than ourselves. It speaks to the legacy that we want to leave behind. And then the other example I brought for you is for computer science. Developing a mobile app for a local nonprofit while in college taught me not only the complexities of software development, but also the profound impact well-crafted software can have on community services. This project was a catalyst for my desire to enhance my skills in software engineering. This example, I'm bringing that here because I also want you to remember that you can use experiences. Let's say you worked on a group project that really inspired you, or you did an internship, or you learned about a certain initiative and that inspired you to then pursue a certain study. But again, here very clearly connected to a larger purpose because it's about community service. The third element of an impactful purpose statement would be you demonstrating a clear understanding of what you're applying for. And with that, I really mean understanding the school you're applying to, the program you're applying to, and then the extracurricular opportunities. The biggest mistake that I make, that I see people make, and that I only realized it after getting to grad school, is it really doesn't matter too much. Of course, it matters a lot, but not 100% what you're going to study. You need to understand that by going to grad school or even undergrads, you're becoming a part of a community. And there's so much happening beyond the classroom. So the more you can demonstrate that you did your research, the better, because that will allow you to show how the classes, student activities, and school culture will actually help you fulfill your purpose. And here is actually an example of what I mean. What you can do, the obvious one, is listing classes that you want to take because they will allow you to build skills you need in order to fulfill your purpose. An example could be something like, at the Kennedy School, I aim to study adaptive leadership because this course will equip me with the necessary skills to lead transformative changes like promoting sustainability across organizations. But beyond the classroom again, you could also mention how you plan to engage on campus. And for that, it honestly really helps if you can talk to people who study at the school or alumni, so that you can learn a little bit more about like what student clubs are active, what student conferences are being organized, and what are the incubator programs. And then of course these are just three examples, but then there's so much more happening on campus. But here is something along the lines I then wrote: at Harvard I plan to actively participate in the innovation lab and apply to the social and innovation change initiative. And then I explain what I want to do. But basically what's good about this is that it shows I did my research, I did my homework, I know that Harvard has the innovation lab, I know that the Kennedy School has this program called SciC, Social Innovation Change Initiative. So the more you can show that you've researched it, the more impressive that will be to the admissions committee. And then you can also always, if that applies, if applicable, mention faculty members that you admire, that you have studied before, and that you would like to work with or study with. So here again, just an example. This one I just made up, but now that I know her, I would have wrote something like Professor Batilana's academic work on power has profoundly influenced my undergraduate thesis. I'm eager to further my understanding and skills by working as a research assistant, etc., etc. But like grad school is not just about the program you study, it's also about the opportunities. And one thing that I don't mention here, but that I would like to say, is you can also try to research and understand the values of the school. Some schools are about innovation, entrepreneurship. Other schools really emphasize community service, sustainability. So if you can kind of show that both of you, the institutions and you as a student, are a match, that's really powerful. But again, of course, it has to be genuine and authentic. Now, I would love to talk about something that I think is probably one of the most important parts, and I think this has been already a red thread through this presentation, which is your contribution. I can't stress enough how important it is that you have a kind of, I don't want to say clear understanding because I don't want to put too much pressure, but if you can start brainstorming or thinking about what is the contribution you aspire to make, that would be amazing. And with that, I really mean contribution to your class, the school you'll be attending, your classmates, larger campus, your community, the community that you come from, that you belong to, and then also broader society, if that applies. But I think this is where coaching really becomes powerful and useful, because over and over, and I mean, I also noticed that in myself, sometimes we struggle to clearly articulate what we are actually contributing. But your contribution can be a different perspective that is rather extraordinary or unique, a special skill that you have developed or taught yourself, an interesting experience that you've had that stretched your mind and maybe even opened your heart, ideas that you have that you want to pursue on campus, and then of course also your unique talents. Here are some examples. This is one of the examples I used to use. Having lived in an indigenous community, just for context, I was living in Mexico in a Zapoteco community, affected by environmental degradation. I gained firsthand insights into how policy decisions impact communities often underrepresented in decision-making spaces. At university, I plan to leverage this knowledge to contribute to policy discussions, ensuring that such perspectives are well represented and considered in academic and extracurricular projects focused on sustainable development and social justice. So again, the more concrete you can be, the better. And then another example that I made up, but I met a lot of people like this, is during my studies, I served as the president of the student council, where I orchestrated initiatives to enhance student life and promote campus-wide inclusivity. This role honed my leadership skills, gave me practical experience. And then at graduate school, I plan to apply these skills by engaging in the Student Government Association, aiming to drive policies that support academic excellence and student well-being. I feel like this one is a little bit too broad, but it's a very great first draft that you then can be a little bit more concrete about. But it's good to show that you've been already engaged in previous places and that you plan to bring that engagement, that drive to your new institutions, to the grad school that you will be attending. And then last but not least, this one never gets old. And now we're kind of already exiting the realm of the purpose statement because this is relevant for anything, especially also when I was working as head of recruitment. I saw that over and over again, people are not answering the question or not answering all parts of the questions. So what's really important is to break it down and make sure you answer everything. But also, to be fair, I feel like sometimes the prompts they give at like grad school is also a little bit overwhelming, which we will see in a second. But I just wanted to say, so far we've talked very much about the classical purpose statement, but nowadays, I mean, I work with many coaches, and I would say fewer and fewer schools ask you for the classical purpose statement, where you have one page, like a motivation letter, where you describe your purpose, everything we just talked about. Oftentimes, they will give you prompts like this one. This is an example I recently worked with, where a marketing program, a school asked this. A personal statement is your opportunity to articulate how your passions and experience will contribute to the marketing program and how this program is the logical next step in your career development. What is a skill or experience you don't possess now but hope to develop in graduate school? Again, like a common pattern I see is that people do not answer everything. So what you need to do, and again, I'm a very visual person. So what I will do is I will first color code to kind of break it into little steps and kind of be like, wait, they're asking for a lot of things. Let's break it down. And here already you see in yellow, passions, experiences, and then like contribute, how will they contribute? Okay, and then the next question, the next part is actually, how is this program the logical next step in your particular career or your particular development? And then also, what are your gaps? So then after color coding it this way, I would just break it down into like these different buckets, and then I will brainstorm for each. First, I'll be like, okay, what are actually my passions, or what do I care about, or values? And then, what are my experiences, the ones that I want to highlight in the statement? Again, no need to list everything because they usually have your resume and your CV. So they will already see what you've done. So you really need to cherry pick the most relevant experiences to answer that particular question. And then you also, need to talk to the contribution because they explicitly asked about it, and ask yourself, where am I with my career, and why is this program that I'm applying to the next step or what I need now? And then, of course, the skills and experiences gaps that this program will close. But yeah, this is how you kind of, break down then every prompt. For Harvard, I had to write 5 essays, and each essay had like a large prompt like this, which I needed to break down. But then, of course, how you structure it, how you do your narrative, that's the next step. But just to summarize, like this quick overview of what we just talked about. I'm not going to repeat it because you can read for yourself and you've heard it. But maybe, I don't know if you want to take a picture of if this is useful. But again, this should be very straightforward. And yet I see over and over how we, including myself, struggle with actually implementing that and articulating that in very concrete story moments. So, thank you very much for listening to this very brief overview. We will have time for questions. But most importantly, I also wanted to say if this is useful to you, if you actually are applying to grad school this year, you can scan this QR code. I was just provided with this QR code by Leland. It should take you to my profile where you can connect, because what I'm happy to help you with is basically discover relevant story moments that made you care and that connect to your journey, that will help you come up with a very cohesive, powerful, convincing narrative. Then the structure of your purpose statement, because these key elements are not the actual structure, it's just key elements, but then you need to make sure that you structure it in a way that has flow. So if you ever need feedbacks on draft and personal branding assistance or interview prep, just let me know. Always happy to help with strategy or anything else. But now I actually would love to open the floor for questions. I'm actually very happy that we still have 13 minutes. Yes, amazing. I mean,
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. Do you help with EMBA programs, so executive MBA programs as well?
yes.
Okay,
So
great.
for full transparency, I should have said, so actually I forgot to mention that when I applied for grad school, because, I hope that the sense you got from today's presentation is that doing an application well really requires so much time and soul searching and really tailoring it to a school, which it took me really months to do that. And that's why I only applied for 2 programs. I only applied for public policy at Harvard, and the other program I applied to was at the management school. It was an entrepreneurship degree at LSE in London, and I also got into it. And that was an even more selective program, only 20 people. But yeah, I actually have a social entrepreneurship background, and during my exchange here at Berkeley, I was at the business school. So I have worked with MBAs too. So
Okay,
yeah.
great. Because I only plan to apply to one program, and that's Columbia's EMBA program here in New York. That's it. I'm only going to apply to that. And if I don't get in, then I'm not going to business school. So, yeah,
Yeah.
because the questions are very specific and they don't want essays anymore. You really, maybe one is an essay, the rest is like one paragraph. Another one is like a 50-character statement of like what you want to do when you're done. So, yeah, I'll reach out. Thank you so much.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing, because it really confirms the trends that I've been seeing. So nowadays, I feel like the classical purpose statement, no one asks for that anymore. But still, I should have emphasized that. I hope that everyone who is still here can hear me. Do the purpose statement. Do it for yourself. Do it as an exercise. Have your friends read it. Ask whether it makes sense, whether it's authentic, genuine, whether it's convincing. It's a great exercise to do the purpose statement, and then you can always use from that for those little paragraph questions that you will be asked. And also I just wanted to say, I really also celebrate your decision to just apply for one program and then just be like, okay, either it happens or it doesn't. That's literally what I did. And I would have been fine if it hadn't worked out. That would have been fine too. Then, I think the less pressure you can put on yourself and leave it a little bit to serendipity, the better. But I'm really a quality over quantity person, so I would really choose like your top 2 or 3 programs instead of applying everywhere. Anyways, does anyone else have questions on anything that was presented? Yes, I like this comment of like, yeah, exactly. Very welcome. I don't know if it was enough time to scan this, so I'm just going to leave this up. But again, like, is there anything else? Because I'm really happily, I have the time to talk about more things or answer any questions. And also thank you so much to everyone attending. I'm now only now seeing all the comments. Thanks for being so engaged. And also best of luck with your application. I think if there's no more question or like feel free. Yeah, I see someone. Did I just see a person turning on their camera? Because if so, feel free to ask questions. Oh, super. I see a question from, is it,
Hi.
hi, is it
Uh,
Risha?
uh,
Raisha.
Raisha.
Raisha. Hi, Raisha.
Hi, thank you so much for this. It was very helpful. I was wondering, so I'm simultaneously applying to some deferred MBA programs
Amazing.
as well as some job applications. And I was wondering, like, how does cover letter writing like involve these steps that you use in, statement of purpose for applications?
Yes, amazing question. And to be honest with you, because I also recently, I mean, not that recently anymore, but I graduated in May. So I was also applying for jobs. And I really found that these steps, it's kind of, really connected to cover letter for a job or statement of purpose. I think, again, that's why I said very important. It's up to you to consider critically what's relevant and what you want to include. But because I've been applying to jobs that actually also, I guess, like my motivation to do those jobs is really connected to my motivation why I wanted to study public policy, why I wanted to study at Harvard. So actually having done the purpose statements or like now doing cover letter, I kind of myself use this structure or like these brainstorming techniques, which are rooted in this summary, kind of, connecting to the values of the firm or the organization that I'm applying to, expressing how I can contribute with my skills and experiences. And yeah, also, of course, then demonstrating a clear understanding of the job and of the organization that I'm applying to. Does that make sense? So I would say yes. Like to me, the pillars of like a motivation letter, cover letter for a job is actually very connected to purpose statement. But I guess a different person might give you a different answer. I'm just also very purpose driven. So I guess like purpose has a central role also in my cover and motivation letters. Does that make sense, Raisha? Did I answer your question, or that you want was a different angle?
No, no, 100%. Yeah, I think just because then we tend to put just one template for all cover letters, but I've realized that that doesn't sometimes get the job done very well.
Yeah, like sadly, I have to say that to you. Like I think again, also when I worked as like head of recruitment, I could spot immediately when I have a template in front of me. And also, I think nowadays with ChatGPT, generative AI, I mean, I could have maybe spoken more to that, but I think nowadays it's really easy to spot just a standard, like template. And that I think rarely works. You really need to do, and that's why I was also emphasizing the do your research bit, where you really speak to specific values of the school, classes listed, extracurricular activities. You really need to demonstrate, be it a school or an employer, that you really did your research and that you're really applying to them, to that position. But then, of course, for us, the applicants, it's sometimes a little bit exhausting. But like, yeah, every time I write an application, I write it from scratch. Of course, I kind of have my purpose statement. I'm very clear on my values. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I care about, and I can see if I can connect it. But yet, every time I do an application, I start with that very specific, context specific. Yeah, thanks for that question. That was an important one. Anyone else has a question? You can, if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can, of course, type in the comment section or like chat, I should say.
Hi, this is Simran. I had a question.
Hi, Simran. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I had a question, so kind of on like step four, right? When you're talking about like your contributions, like for example, that second example where someone was talking about like their undergraduate studies and like serving as like the president of the student council and being involved with something similar in graduate school. Like you mentioned that, right? Like that's like a good first draft, but ideally it would be like more specific. Like, how would you suggest like making that like more specific? What are some questions that maybe you would ask that person to drill down? Because I think a lot of us may have something similar where we are involved in XYZ club in undergrad and probably like would do that thing in grad school as well. But again, how do you make that very tailored and specific to you?
Yeah, so I think this is like now really where coaching comes in. And of course, I can share with you, like as a coach, like few questions that I would ask. But then what I've learned is like the beauty of the discovery process. It really takes many conversations, much introspection to kind of come to those bigger answers. But I think and to the cohesive story. But I think what I would be interested in, if I saw if someone submitted this, my immediate question would be, okay, but like, like driving policies that support academic excellence and student well-being, it's a little bit too broad. Can you be a little bit more specific about like why that matters to you, or when have you witnessed the opposite of excellence, or maybe instead of well-being, unwell-being? What kind of policies are you actually talking about? Why does that matter to you? And then of course I'm curious about, so you're saying that at grad school you plan to apply these skills to the student government association. Does the student government association have like a name? Like for example, at the Kennedy School is KSSG. Can you just write KSSG so that it really shows that you did your research and that you know about the committees, and basically also like more, what have you learned when you served as the president and undergrads? What exactly did you do? Again, this like framing of like, oh, I like orchestrated initiatives to enhance student life. What were the actual outcomes? Like, what does it mean to enhance student life? So I think like in my coaching, I would try to dig deeper in like, why does it matter to you and what exactly are you talking about? So I think this is, again, a good first draft. I mean, many purpose statements that I've seen don't even list something like that. So the fact that you already demonstrate the willingness to serve to the student community, that's already amazing. But then, yeah, can you be even more specific? And I also, does that help? Does that answer your
Yeah,
question? Yeah.
yeah, it does because I think like a lot of us like right like we're maybe even able to get to like this first draft by ourselves, but it's like
Yeah.
you said, like taking it to that next level and really making it specific and tailored.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I just saw a question in the chat about, do you think would still be possible to, no, sorry, I mean, can we get session recording? Yeah, I think you can get the session recording. I believe it's recorded, and I believe that Leland will post it. I myself do not have access to recording. This is via Leland, so I'm not sure how to get it, but I think it will be available. I hope so. But I will definitely ask. Just shoot me a message and I will ask and then hopefully share the link with you. And then Rania is asking, do you think it would still be possible to write a good statement in 1 week? I have written a long brainstorming statement, but I still need to narrow it all down as the deadlines approach next week. I mean, of course, who am I to say that no? Of course, I would never tell you no. I think humans have done crazy things, and it's totally possible. Of course, like I think 1 week might feel a little bit rushed, but definitely not impossible. I really hope that today's session is helping you a little bit, or hopefully you have the chance to work with a coach. But even if you did it yourself, I think you can definitely come up with a good statement. The question then is always like, right, like how good is good enough for you? You know, I'm sure it's going to be amazing, but then is it going to be, you know, like the standard you want it to be? I don't know, because I don't know what your definition of good is, but I think it's definitely possible. And I'm also, sadly, I have to admit, I'm a procrastinator. The thesis that I showed you, people take a year to write their grad school thesis. I did it in 2 weeks. Don't recommend. It was not a great experience to do it so rushed, but still, it ended up being very good. So I think you got this, and best of luck. But with that, everyone, I see we have now reached the time. I'm very grateful that you were here. I wish you best of luck. Let me know if I can support you with anything. Please stay in touch, and fingers crossed, and all the best for you again. Bye bye.